I'm Robert, and I'm fact checker and science blogger, and also the admin and founder of Doomsday Debunked, where we help people who are scared of various things. And we help by fact checking and finding the truth. And I'm saying this in order to help psychologists who are dealing with people who have extreme climate anxiety. We get many of those come to our group. And the sad thing is that this anxiety is based on false news, fake, untrue things. A lot of it is based on this one paper by Jem Bendel called Deep Adaptation, and it was rejected because he refused to bring it up to even the most basic of academic standards. They don't say specifically why it was rejected, but you just need to look at the paper. Its main site on climate change is to an unpublished blog post, an unpeer-reviewed blog post by a systems analyst, not even a climate scientist. And that is just not acceptable, obviously, in an academic paper. And climate scientist Michael Mann says the whole thing is just crap. He had just one word for it, crap. And the BBC never mention it. They have a series of articles about dealing with climate anxiety and about this paper, Deep Adaptation, and they never anywhere mention that it is crap. See, this is an actual screenshot, and I can bring it up here. And eco-anxiety, how to spot it and what to do about it. And they say, meanwhile, an academic paper on climate change that is so grim it apparently results in people going to therapy has gone viral. And they never explain that this is not even published in any scientific journal, and it was rejected from peer review, and it was just crap. And many people don't seem, they often say this is a worst case scenario, what he describes there. It is not. In science, some things can actually be wrong. For instance, the triple point of water, the point at which water freezes and it's in equal state between solid, liquid and gas, is about the atmospheric pressure of Mars and a little bit above 0 degrees centigrade. This is true everywhere in the universe. Water in the Andromeda galaxy will behave in exactly the same way. Water in a galaxy a billion light years away, will still have exactly the same triple point. And if someone says that the triple point of water is 1,000 degrees centigrade, then they're just plain wrong. And that is the sense in which Jem Bendel's paper is just wrong. It's not a worst case scenario, it's just wrong. And if you get patients coming to you with this high level of very severe climate anxiety, and they've been told, I'll bring it up in a minute, they've been told, this is Michael Mann saying it's just crap. Bring up this actual tweet. Crap, what are your thoughts? Just one word for it, that's all he had. And I forgot the XR Rebellion page here. I'll close that here. So, yes, here this will do. So, the Extinction Rebellion, they have been going around schools in the UK telling children that they are not going to grow up, that the situation is so bad that they don't have a future, and they tell parents that the children won't have a future. And this is completely made up, and is mainly based on this crap paper. And here is, and this is an IPCC author saying, please stop telling kids they may not grow up. You could bring up her actual tweet there as well. I'll bring up this in the new article. So that's kind of something. This is what she actually said. Bring up her tweet itself. To a philosophy professor who's been telling children they won't grow up. And she said to them, Rupert, I am shocked at this talk. Please stop telling children they may not grow up due to climate change. It is wrong, capital letters, and deflects from the fact it is poor people who are at risk due to inequality exacerbated by shifts in weather. By poor people, she means the very poor in the least developed countries, where right today many children are dying even of diarrhea, easily prevented. And these are the people who are at risk from the climate change. And then, so now I can go back to this. And limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees C compared with 2 degrees C would reduce challenging impacts on ecosystems, human health and well-being, make it easier to achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that is, for instance, the goal of reducing the amount of the risk to health and harm. For instance, 5-year-olds dying of diarrhea. It just shouldn't happen in our present-day world. And they are making great progress. It has halved in the last 17 years the mortality of young children due to easily prevented causes. And he's saying that that this could be reversed as a result of climate change, and that some of these sustainable development goals will be reversed. This is not saying that people in the UK risk dying of climate change or not having a future. And this is the Andrew Neil show, and he's a hard-hitting interviewer in the UK, and he is not a climate scientist. He's just an interviewer, but he just went to the IPCC report and he had a few facts there that he had found. He'd read probably read their summary for policymakers carefully, and he challenged Extinction Rebellion and said, where in this report does it say that billions of people will die? And she had no answer to it. Absolutely no answer. And he doesn't know much about climate change, but he knew enough, and he just pressed on that over again, and she had absolutely nothing to say. These people are completely baseless what they're saying. Climate change is very serious indeed. It's very significant, especially reversing these sustainable development goals and many problems with natural disasters and so on, and increasing risk of wildfire, increasing risk of hurricanes, the need to adapt and change the way we do our agriculture, and needing to protect cities against flooding. There are many reasons to act on climate change, but we do not risk collapse of society, and we do not risk human extinction, and you won't find any of this in any of the reports. So please, 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 if you are a psychologist or a therapist and you're helping these people, and let me bring back to this page, then so the BBC articles, and if I bring up another of the BBC articles, and this is one of them, and so this is a therapist, and a psychologist, a climate psychologist, and he says climate anxiety, like climate depression or climate rage, isn't a pathology. It's a reasonable and healthy response to an existential threat. He is telling his patients that they risk dying of climate change, and he's saying that, and he's helping them to adjust to this, because he believes in deep adaptation. And this is another of a series of articles by the BBC, or is this by the BBC? Yes, it's BBC Future. And you go down to the bottom and you'll see this entire series of articles. This article is part of our Climate Emotion series. Climate change is harming the planet. It may be harming our mental health too. And from fear and anxiety to hope and healing, this series examines our complex responses to climate change and how those responses will shape our ability to deal with the environmental challenge we face. This entire series is based on the idea of Jem Bendel's deep adaptation, which, as the climate scientists say, is just complete crap. The BBC should not publish such stuff. It's appalling. It's utterly appalling and outrageous. And these therapists who believe this, and they haven't checked the climate science, and you just need to go and watch the videos. Even, as I said, go to the, if I can find that page again, just go to I can bring up these very, very short summaries, the co-chair statements for the 2018 report. Just go and read that. There's nothing there. And if there were billions that risk dying, of course the co-chairs would have said so. If there was a risk of human extinction, of course they would have said so. There's nothing on this page about that. That is a very, very short thing. You can read in this in a few minutes and check for yourself. There's nothing there about it. You can go and watch the press conference for the 2018 report. You can watch the summaries from the video chairs, and the IPCC report is designed to give the full range of views. If there was a worst case, they would certainly present it there. It's like the medical systematic reviews, systematic high-level reviews, which gives everything that is of relevant, that is important, that climate scientists need to know. And they do not say this. All we have behind this is a junk sociologist and who cites junk science. And if you go to the Extinction Rebellion Handbook, then the only chapter on climate science in that handbook is by this Jem Bendel, and he says things that are utter nonsense. He says that having realised that the IPCC can't be trusted for some weird, spurious reasons he gives, then he says, who am I as a sociologist to say all this, but then you can't trust the IPCC, so listen to me. And then he goes on, and I'm just a rough summary. I've got a video I did about it separately, if you want to read, and you can look at his actual words. But he's basically saying, listen to me, I'm a sociologist, don't listen to the IPCC. And it's nuts, crazy stuff. And the journalists seem to have gone crazy too. I mean, how could the BBC do a whole series on deep adaptation and never say that it is crap? I mean, in all of my life, I've never seen anything like this. The utter rubbish that we have had connected with climate change over the last just 1 year. It all took off in 2018. Before then, it wasn't so bad. There were a few mistaken journalist reports. But since then, the journalists seem to have been vying with each other for saying the most outrageous and mistaken and false things based on junk science, going to the IPCC reports and misreporting it, like the New York Times did with their whole thing about climate, about carbon tax. And I mean, these are just some of, if you go and look at my fact-checking article, these are just some of the numerous fact-checking errors that have been in just the last year. Just pages of it. And these are just a short summary for each one. So I will add a link to this at the bottom of it as well. And again, this was one of the worst. This is one of the worst. National Geographic. They said up to 75% of people could face deadly heat waves by 2100. They never explained that the word deadly in the paper they were summarising was a technical term that meant that there was a 1 in 10,000 chance of one person in 10,000 would die if they didn't take the right precautions, and those would mainly be old people and babies, and all of them would be absolutely fine if they took the right precautions. And this is about heat waves that already affect 30% of the world every year. And it's absolutely obvious that 30% of the world is not dying every year of deadly heat waves. So this was another absolutely appalling article by the National Geographic. And the other ones, it's extraordinary, it's absolutely bizarre. I've never seen anything like it in my whole life. And as I say, what I'm doing is just try to communicate what the scientists themselves are saying to the general public. And so anyway, you can have a read of this fact-checking thing as well. I'll put links to all these pages in the video description, and that is enough for now. Just a plea to psychologists: if you're treating patients with climate anxiety, please encourage them to fact-check. And the shortest fact-check, just ask them to read the co-chair statements of the IPCC and check there's absolutely nothing there about human extinction or about billions of people dying. There are serious things, and they do warn against against important things, significant things, but it's nothing about that. And I will also add a link to video description of the where you can watch the press conferences for the IPCC and for IPBES. I think it's in this page. Anyway, so I hope this helps, and I do subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Usual thing people say at the end of the YouTube videos. But do, if you're scared, do join our Doomsday Debunk Facebook group, and I will add that to the video description as well. And we also welcome people who to come and do fact checking and help people, because when people are very, very scared and anxious, then it's they do not think clearly. It is very hard to fact check for climate science, because you go to this one, even a professor in a different area of science, and believed this National Geographic study, this National Geographic report, because they thought, in their experience, these people report things accurately, but they do not report climate science accurately, and so it is very difficult to fact check. And you need to know, go to the IPCC. If you want to fact check climate science, go to the top, go to the IPCC. It's a systematic review of the entire literature on climate science. Then based on that, and don't rely on what the journalists say the IPCC said. Go to the IPCC directly and watch their videos and read the summary for policymakers, read the co-chair statements. And then based on that, then evaluate other things, and you'll find that most of the climate science in the mainstream media for last year has been just full of errors, and then my fact checking may help. Anyway, so if you're a scared person and you're scared, or if any of you are experts on climate science or asteroids or any of the other things that they get scared of, then again, please join our group and help them with fact checking these stories, because it is very difficult for them themselves to fact check. And if you are a psychologist, please do not encourage, please, however you do it, don't encourage your patients to believe these false things. Don't encourage them in false beliefs. And don't try to help them to cope with a false belief, but help them to challenge these beliefs. And thanks for listening.